Okay, President Joyce, we're all set.
All right, so we're gonna resume the compounding discussion. Staff member Effermont.
Yes, staff member FMOP. So just coming back to this one section, run to try to finalize the language. I apologize. It gives 1 moment to get set up.
Board Member Pinedo, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
This is staff member FMOP. We tried to add simplicity and kind of write it similarly to how it is in Division 115, but we are missing the in addition to or other inspection forms. So I think what we're trying to not lose sight of is that this is an additional inspection form that has to be completed for compounding. But again, each individual registration will have its other requirements in their division that says you have to do this inspection form. And then for this one, it says you have to do this one. So it might satisfy that. But just wanted to open it up to board member discussion if this suffices or any suggested edits. And we can start with whoever or just open if anybody would like to speak to it on their thoughts, or we could go round robin your call.
I can start.
Thank you.
Although I think we've been trying not to duplicate, I think we've had some feedback that it can be confusing. And I'm looking at the compounding form now, and it has this statement at the top. This is to be completed in conjunction with the appropriate drug outlet self-inspection form. I do think we lost something when we took out and I think we should say in addition to the appropriate drug outlet self-inspection form. And then start this sentence, because I think we lost that. And this is one way to go about it. But I think we're gonna get those questions going, oh, so this replaces that? And so if we want to be really clear, even though we don't want to duplicate, I think if we want to be really clear, I think we should say in addition to the form.
So staff member FMOP, could we put in addition to completing the appropriate drug outlet self-inspection form?
That's what it says on the top of the compounding form. So if we mirror that language, then yeah.
Add that and pause and let everyone read this for a moment. Okay.
Okay, wait, am I deleting
So in addition to completing the appropriate drug outlet self-inspection form, the pharmacist in charge must complete.
You can edit that now, like that piece go away.
So get rid of the July 1, or just get to the compounding self-inspection form.
Sorry, board member, Vice President Kirkbride, can you re-articulate?
In addition to completing the appropriate drug outlet self-inspection form by July 1st each year.
Gotcha.
The pharmacist in charge
Or just delete.
Yep, sorry, hold on, that's fine.
So just keep deleting, hold on.
The pharmacist charge, keep going, sorry.
I think that and within 15 days went up top with the first part too.
Hold on.
After July 15.
July 1 and within 15?
Yep.
July.
Each year and within 15 days. Hang on. Oh my God.
Might need the word annually in there too. They might have lost that.
Wait, we don't need each year if you're
So-
saying annually.
In addition to completing the appropriate drug outlet self-inspection form by July 1st of each year and within 15 days of becoming PIC.
Mhm.
Sorry, what was your vision?
The pharmacist in charge must complete.
Yeah.
The compounding self-inspection form provided by the board. Thing like that.
So in addition to completing the appropriate drug outlet self-inspection form by July 1st of each year and within 15 days of becoming the pharmacist in charge, the PIC must complete the compounding self-inspection form provided by the board.
If we have PIC up above somewhere else, I don't need to have that twice, but I will have to look.
Must also complete the compounding self-inspection form provided by the board.
That could be good. I think the takeaway is that there is a second form that you need to add on now that you are doing compounding.
Gotcha.
Seems pretty good.
Any further comments? Vice President Kirkbride, I will hand it back to Board President Joyce then.
Board President Joyce, it does flow better this way. Any other comments from anyone? Otherwise, I'm gonna go ahead and motion. All right. Is there a motion to move to send OAR 855-006-0005, OAR 855-041-1018, OAR 855-043-0545, OAR 855-043-0630, OAR 855-043-740, OAR 855-045-0200, OAR 855-045-0205, OAR 855-045-0210, OAR 855-045-0220, OAR 855-045-0240, OAR 855-045-0270, OAR 855-183-0001, OAR 855-183-0005, OAR 855-183-0010, OAR 855-183-0015, OAR 855-183-0020, and OAR 855-183-0030 as revised to the May 2026 rulemaking hearing.
So move, Board Member Chin.
Is there a second?
Board Member Smith?
For President Joyce, yes. Board Vice President Kirkbride.
Yes.
Board Member Chin. Board Member Hall.
Yes.
Board Member Kroger.
Yes.
Board Member Patel.
Yes.
Board Member Pinheiro.
Yes.
Board Member Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We will now discuss annual rules policy discussion with staff member Effermoff.
Right, thank you so much for all of your hard work on the last section and all of our SMEs over several work groups and SME Gustavson and everyone who spends a ton of time, dedication, making this happen. Thank you.
Thanks for putting up with me.
So we're gonna move on to, and I apologize, I think this is mailing B. All right, perfect, mailing B. This is rules priorities. Once we get that slideshow pulled up, we'll just revisit this and just let me know whenever you're good to go.
All set.
All right, so we can go to the next slide. Again, we always start every policy discussion or meeting with our mission to help us guide through our conversations, and the board is tasked with ensuring high standards in the practice through effective regulation to ensure the safety, health, and welfare of Oregonians. Next slide. As we discussed in April of 2025, every year in April, we will revisit the board-approved rules priority list to assess our progress and to identify if there's any compelling reasons or urgent needs that are not being met that would warrant modifying the list. In April of 2025, at the board meeting, we discussed the importance and reasons for this process. The intent behind this review is to ensure the board processes, specifically rule writing, is in alignment with board's priorities as articulated in the strategic plan. The current strategic plan is for 2024 through 2029, and a major component of the focus is systematic modernization of rules for pharmacies and non-pharmacy drug outlets. The current approved rule prioritization list accounts for this and also provides an allotment to allow for timely responses to new laws that are passed. This process also provides transparency to the public and enhances communication between the board and staff. It allows staff to communicate capabilities and to redistribute and reorganize policy topics to better reflect workflow as directed by the board. And it also allows the board to set clear expectations and communicate that to staff. So this is our annual check-in, and it allows staff to provide a rules progress report to the board and to provide any recommended changes to the list. Next slide. So you've seen this slide before. This slide shows the list of divisions we have enrolled with corresponding last date of revision. It is important to note that some of the revised dates may depict full revisions, like, for example, Division 115 for pharmacists, 120 for interns, and 125 for technicians that underwent full comprehensive division revisions with several different work groups and public input from 2022 to 2024, while others depict minor updates and not full revisions. For example, Division 41 that underwent minor updates to correspond with other rule sets in 2022, 23, and 24. And looking at this table, it is apparent that some divisions are overdue to be revisited. Some are as old as the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Though certain facets of the practice have evolved more quickly than others, age is not a sole indicator that a rule is outdated and no longer applicable, but it does provide another metric that may be helpful in assessing priorities. So this brings us to the rules prioritization list. Next slide. So here we have the list that was approved in April. To orient everyone to this chart, we have the list of immediate category. It's intended to be the placeholder for any new laws passed or urgent circumstances that arise that would require board action. Some current examples that staff are currently working on include from 2025 legislative session, PPL law change. So the board discussed law changes and policy direction at the October 2025 board meeting, draft rules at the February 2026 board meeting. And at the end of April, we will be sending out a public feedback request that will close in early May and be presented to the board at June of 2026. HBSB changes to law. Staff is currently working on a process and rule updates with the goal to provide that to the board by the end of the year. And a migration from Oregon specific MPJE to uniform MPJE. The goal is to have this effective for 2027 and edits complete and provided to the board hopefully at the next upcoming meeting. And we now know for 2026 legislative session, House Bill 4131 passed, but it's still awaiting the governor's signature.
Oh,
So
no, she signed it.
Signed? Wonderful. Thank you for the update.
Yep.
So this will direct the board to create a mobile pharmacy registration, and staff will begin working on that shortly. The next section is the high priority category, and we have a standing goal to complete this over the next 2 to 3 years if the immediate category allows us to spend the necessary time to focus on this section of rules. Updating and implementing changes from federal changes in regulation to the Drug Supply Chain Security Act that went into effect in May, August, November of 2025 is listed first. This is the highest priority category, and staff has been working on this as time permits. It includes updating Division 60 for manufacturers, 62 for DDAs and 3PLs, 65 for wholesalers, and creating a whole new division for outsourcing facilities to align with the federal requirements. Next, you can see here the next 2 topics are struck out for drug compounding and pharmacist prescribing vaccines as they are close to completion, though small additional work might be necessary. The next 2 sections for cold drug storage and Division 41 changes are closely intertwined, and it's likely going to make sense for staff to address these concurrently and bring forth to the board when appropriate. These sections will need significant work and likely several work groups, especially for retail pharmacy and institutional pharmacy updates. When staff is ready to address these rules, we will request the board more direction on this topic specifically. And lastly, in this section is the remote dispensing site pharmacy, or better known as RDSP. These rules were created in 2022, so staff needs to check on these regulations to see how they're working and how they might need to address some edits or changes for board review. The next section is the medium category and contains several different sections of rules that vary in degree of work that need done. Some need slight revisions or alignments with current standards or updated rules. For example, dispensing practitioner drug outlets or community health clinics, while others have not undergone revisions in several decades and need completely readdressed, for example, nuclear pharmacy or non-prescription drug outlets. Second to last category is low priority. These rules we know need to be addressed, but do not raise to the level of the other categories in priority. So for example, from our last experience with a public health emergency, we know we could improve and need to reassess our rules on how to better prepare for the future. And we currently are inspecting correctional facilities for the 25-27 biennial cycle and believe we'll gain great insight and feedback to address updating correctional facility rules to assist in clarity, safety, and compliance. Finally, we have the annual category, which includes standards adopted by reference for all rules, which you've completed today, and also any new laws passed with legislation. This is to help us review what we are going to need to prepare for the next session. So if we can go to the next slide. This is the sample timeline that was created in 2025 and kind of our opportunity to check and adjust the list as expectations are needed. Currently, you can see the immediate items. This section seems to be working effectively, and we are on top of everything that we need to be at this time. General high priority, the goal was over the next 2 to 3 years. Staff has met some of these projections, but we believe it might be tight to complete all of these other categories in the next 2 to 3 years from today. But we don't recommend any changes at this time. We met our current projection for compounding and are working to finalize these sections of rules. We have started working on DSCSA, but there's a significant amount of work and it will take some time to bring these forth to the board. We're hoping in the next few meetings, we can start to bring components of that to review. We will not meet our goal for adoption by the end of 2025. So that's not possible due to competing legislative priorities and other unexpected priorities that came forth. Division 41, pharmacies and cold drug storage, staff still believe could be achieved within the next 3 years, but it would more likely be towards the end of 2029. Medium priority, we believe that this comment is still accurate. We can try to work on some of the related topics and overlap with high priority as time permits. Realistically, between 3 to 5 year process, I think is looking more at the end of 2031, realistically, to be able to complete these. And the same for the low priority goal would be probably extending that out a year to 2031. If you don't mind, Rachel, can we go back to the next slide or the previous slide? And so for board discussion, staff does not recommend any changes to the rules prioritization list at this time, but we want to open it up for board discussion, and I'll hand it back to Board President Joyce.
Board President Joyce, yeah, I do believe it. I think might be my turn on the round robin. Obviously, I'm not going to propose any changes. However, where would addressing the roles of pharmacy clerks and CPHT fall in? Because I personally, I consider it like a medium category. I mean, would it fall in under universal rules or?
So staff member Efromoff, I think it'll be helpful for the board to understand after Executive Director Runyon's presentation of what that timeline looks like for something like that to be completed. But I think technically in this process, it could be considered immediate because it is legislation related to how we work on it, or our annual component, we could embed that into new laws. It currently says after legislation session, but it could be maybe bookended at either of those. And then once you have an understanding maybe of what the process looks like, we can mirror that to the time frame of how long it might take to get something like that done. Might be more like a medium.
Yeah, no, I mean, I clearly understand that, the legislative process might also assist with that, but who knows? And earlier today, I appreciated the display you had on the fees and us acting on it, because it brings it to our attention, because the 40% pay increase was a surprise to a lot of people. So now we will pay more attention to it. So thank you.
So we did not meet the 2025 for DSCSA. Is there an estimate on what we're looking at for a new timeline for that work?
Staff member Efremov, I think it would be staffing issues aside and pending other crazy things that could come up, I would think from a year from now would be a reasonable goal to try to bring all of these sections. We hope to bring manufacturers in the next two meetings. Within the next two meetings, I should probably state clear, and then hoping, depending on how that works, to cascade those all one after another kind of simultaneously too, because there's a lot of overlap in how these work. So I think a year from today would be our goal.
Thank you, that helps. Yeah, I mean, the vaccine piece is complicated. I know we did a lot of work on that. And it continues to be complicated. So I think we just have to see what happens with multiple components there that are outside of our control. I don't think I have any other question. Thank you.
Member Patel?
But it's a, so what we are thinking about cold drug storage. My favorite. Or we are thinking, can we do it like this year,
Oh,
next
so
year?
I think cold drug storage was gonna be partnered with Division 41, and the goal then would be to try to meet the 2029 to get everything pulled together. So I understand that. I assume we're going to have to get work groups together for these discussions and that it would make sense and how to pull this together. But I know the board had previously put DSCSA, so if we can get DSCSA in 1 year, then we can start working on the other. So it would just matter how long rules take. But I hear you. It's next on the list after drug supply chain.
That's the big one, because that's the wholesaler, manufacturers. That's going to take quite a bit of time, but, all right, thanks.
Thank you. Board Member Smith,
Board Member Smith, nothing to add.
Board Member Grover.
My question is, the UPJE.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so we actually have the rules drafted, so we could bring those forth. We were just trying to think of the best timing for an effective date. So we had one question on kind of rule writing. Do you put into rules the effective date, or do they just go effective the date they're filed? So we had a couple other kind of strategic best way to do it to inform the public, but also not confuse the public of when we flip the switch. So that is part of immediate. So I guess immediate, we look at any urgent matters potentially. That's where we popped it in.
Great, I was just curious, thank you.
Thank you. Remember Jim?
Remember Chin has nothing to add, thank you.
Board Member Hall?
Board Member Hall, yeah, hopefully I'm here for the cold drug storage. 2029, and I would like to see, you know, the certified technician licensing looked at again. It'd be nice to just have it on there, maybe under low.
Yeah.
Other than that,
Board Member Panino?
Board Member Pinedo, yeah, I echo President Joyce's non-licensees in the pharmacy. And what that, I mean, I feel like that's kind of important right now, considering where we're currently sitting at the topic. I feel like that needs to be put into play somewhere on here to know that it is there and it is going to be addressed.
Thank you.
No, thank you. And that's funny. You scratched off drug compounding before you put that up there. So that's good job.
I had faith. I
Just-
just knew this would happen.
yeah.
Optimistic perhaps. Okay, I did want to circle back. I heard Board Member Hall propose to add in addition to the low, to relook at CPT. Could you clarify what that might mean? And we can see if other board members agree to add that in. Board Member Hall, what related to CPTs would you like to look at addressed?
just the licensing requirements, Because we have, a technician and then a certified technician, and so I think we need to look at that, and then in addition to the clerk not being licensed.
Thank you. So it sounds like I said, we'll hear more about the legislative concept stuff from Executive Director Runyon. I'll just go around to see if there's majority who would like to add to the low. It sounds like maybe the certification component of tech versus CPT as an extra category to add. And do you want to go ahead and start, Board President Joyce?
Yeah, definitely. I say it just about every meeting, the CPHT, and, I feel it's almost like a medium. I don't see it ever overlapping with high at this time. But definitely the non-licensed pharmacy staff, the so-called quote clerk, that's also an issue. But CPHT, most definitely somewhere between medium and low.
Okay, so Staff Member Mapa here, a proposal to potentially add the clerk issue to medium, and there we all know the direction from the potential legislative concept, and then adding to medium or low the CPT/technician licensing structure.
I feel that that's appropriate.
Board Member Kirkbride? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, a little more clarity on, what exactly we're looking at, but it sounds like licensing structure of the two categories and what the requirements are for those. Is that just a review?
This is Board Member Chin. What has been talked about on many meetings is that we have changed our rules after COVID so that the techs didn't have to become CPTs after a year, and the CPTs on the board are really wanting to see either that reversed or everybody needs to be CPTs. It's pretty much the bottom line.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm trying to say is we should say what we mean. So if we mean a specific thing, we should put that thing on the board, as specific as we can, because a year from now or whenever we look at it again, we may not remember all that detail. So whatever words articulate, what our fellow board members really want, let's put that up there.
Staff Member Moffs, perhaps we could put certification of technicians down, would that encompass, and then non-licensees is the other issue, so that we could understand clearly what those mean. Thank you for that clarity. Board Member Patel.
Member Patel, I think the including clerk as a licensee, I think that's what we are, or right, that's the issue with the clerk, is like you want to put clerk as a licensee?
Staff Member Efroff, I think it was part of the legislative concept that might be going forth related to non-licensees being able to do certain duties or not. I think was part of what is moving and how to incorporate that as part of the rules prioritization list, to keep in mind the work that is done for a legislative concept also.
We don't know when that's going, I would say it's like really how to put somewhere, I would put in the parking lot.
Okay.
Like, it shouldn't be here. And then same it goes with the certified pharmacy technician to certification required, not required, like. I think that's also should be in the parking lot, because I feel like we have so many other priorities, right? And then you're saying like that's going to take 28, 29. So, you know what I mean? So it's like, why wasting that time, put in the parking lot?
Staff Member Efroff, just to note, it is in the policy parking lot. Both of those things are currently included. Board Member Smith, addition potentially for the lower end of medium to add unlicensed unlicensed individuals and tech certification.
Board Member Smith, these are important things. I don't know if they top some of the things though that are on the list. So I think putting them on there is probably a good idea, but there are definitely things I think are a higher priority than that still. Thank you.
Board Member Kroger.
Board Member Pro. I'm not in favor of adding or revisiting the tech certification licensing requirements, adding it to this list. And I think we're gonna hear more from Gary on the clerk piece.
Board Member Chin.
Board Member Chin, I am in favor of staying in the parking lot for now.
Board Member Hall
Remember how I'd like to see it on low priority?
and Board Member Benito.
Board Member Pinedo, my concern is mainly the non-licensees, because of how the law is written and how it is right now. That would be more of a priority to me versus the technician versus CPHT and bringing that back, because I mean, we are currently doing that now and that's not a big change, but the non-licensees in the pharmacy and that has how it is written and what is allowed currently, I think that is a priority because it is either following the law or not following the law.
Thank you for that clarification. So what I'm hearing, majority is not to add, but to work on the legislative concept. You'll get more information on that and to make sure we keep those other topics on the parking list to be readdressed as we reassess these. Is that the consensus? Just to make sure I heard that okay? Right, is there any further discussion on this list or do we need, is there an action item? I apologize. Is there a motion on this one?
I believe there is. On here, rules priority list.
Oh, okay.
So motion?
If that's the process, yes,
Okay.
sounds good.
Awesome. Is there a motion to approve the rules policy discussion priority list as revised? Oh, no revisions?
I don't think there's any revisions.
Okay.
I
didn't hear
thought
any
you were
revisions.
adding something to the medium list.
No, that didn't.
No? Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's a parking lot. Okay, is there a motion to move to approve the rules policy discussion priority list, version 4-2026 as proposed?
Move board member Smith.
Second?
Second.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Wait,
Board President Joyce, yes. Board Vice President Kirkbride.
who seconded?
Yes.
Board Member Chin. Board Member Hall. Board Member Kroger.
Yes.
Board Member Patel.
Yes.
Board Member Pietro.
Yes.
Board Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes.
I'm sorry, President Joyce, who was the second? I missed it. President Joyce was?
I was not the second.
Then I'll be the second.
Caption, thank you.
I thought you said you seconded.
I'll second.
You seconded.
Okay.
Legislative session, is that next?
Mhm.
Okay. We'll now receive an informative presentation related to legislative session with Executive Director Runyon.
Executive Director Runyon, I suppose we should pause for point of order to make sure it's okay to go till 5. Can be a little long-winded. I'm gonna cut that down. I'm glad you were sitting
As long as
down
we
when I
don't
said
have-
that.
Yeah, we don't have to be out of the building, right? Out of the, because I thought there was like a housekeeping cutoff or whatever, but that's tomorrow
We have to break.
technically,
We have
if,
to
if,
break this one.
for them to come in and clean the, whatever. Yeah. Talk quickly. You know?
I did set myself up for that. Now we'll transition to talking about legislative session and what points are important for us, or what points are operative going forward that you can keep in your back pocket as we go through board meetings. Signs. As always, we'll start all these discussions with our mission statement. Of course, we serve the Board of Pharmacy serves to promote and protect public health, safety, welfare by ensuring high standards of practice of pharmacy and through effective regulation of manufacturing and distribution of drugs. And of course, the Board of Pharmacy is part of the executive branch, which carries out and enforces state laws. That includes state agencies in the Governor's Office, Secretary of State, State Treasurer, and Commissioner of Bureau of Labor and Industries. Additionally, it's important to remember that the Board of Pharmacy is, of course, an other funds agency, so we do not receive support from general fund, the taxpayer dollars, or from lottery proceeds. And instead, our operations are supported entirely by the licensing fees and civil penalties we collect. However, being self-funded does not mean that we operate with less oversight. We're held to the same exact rigorous fiduciary standards and budgetary scrutiny as any general fund or lottery funded agency is. Whether the money comes from the public treasury or from licensees, we maintain a commitment to the highest level of stewardship and transparency in how those resources are utilized. Okay. Over the next few slides, we'll cover the Senate structure, identify some important Senate committees, and we'll do the same for the House side. The Senate consists of 30 members serving 4-year terms, each representing over 140,000 Oregonians. Understanding the makeup of this chamber is critical for us, as every Board of Pharmacy legislative concept, budget package, and fee ratification must successfully navigate this body. So there's some important names up here. Senate President Rob Wagner presides over daily sessions and manages the chamber's operations. President pro tempore James Manning Jr. serves as the temporary presiding officer in the absence of the Senate President, ensuring the continuous flow of chamber operations and parliamentary procedure. Senators Casey Jama and Bruce Starr are the majority and minority leaders elected to manage their respective party affairs, establish caucus priorities, and guide voting strategies. They retain dedicated staff to handle constituent relations and coordinate caucus operations. Next slide. And as you can see on the slide, the Senate is currently divided into 15 specialized standing committees. This structure allows lawmakers to divide the massive volume of proposed legislation and build subject matter expertise in specific sectors of the state. For our agency, the most consequential of these is the Senate Healthcare Committee, currently chaired by Senator Deb Patterson. This committee serves as a primary gateway for almost all pharmacy and public health legislation. Whenever we submit a legislative concept or when a bill is introduced and impacts our licensees or our regulatory authority, this is the room where we typically call to present our perspective, provide expert testimony, and answer lawmaker questions. Moving on to the House of Representatives, this chamber has 60 members. Because they serve shorter 2-year terms and represent smaller districts of roughly 70,000 citizens, the House often moves quickly and is highly responsive to public feedback. For our agency, the most critical figure here is Speaker Julie Fahey. She wields the ultimate authority to assign our bills to committees, which can make or break legislative concepts. She's supported by Speaker pro tempore David Goldberg, alongside caucus leaders Ben Bowman and Lucetta Elmer, who drive the legislative priorities and voting strategies for their respective parties. Similarly, the House manages its legislative workload through 16 specialized standing committees. And for our purposes, the House Healthcare Committee, currently chaired by Representative Rob Noakes, is the most vital. This is a room where the heavy lifting happens for our legislative concepts and where we provide expert testimony to ensure lawmakers understand the clinical and regulatory impact of proposed legislation. And from PBM oversight to medication-assisted treatment and health professional services programs, the House Healthcare Committee frequently entertains pivotal topics that shape the fundamental nature of how people experience healthcare here in the state. Because they handle these lifeblood issues of our profession, our relationship with Chair Noakes and the committee staff remains one of the agency's highest strategic priorities. And to clarify the terminology here, the Legislative Assembly, when we use that term, refers to the Senate and House collectively. Our work flows in a strict constitutional calendar, convening every January. In odd-numbered years, we have a regular session of up to 160 days, and in even-numbered years, such as this one, we're limited to a short session of 35 days. Beyond the elected officials, 2 nonpartisan offices are critical to our success. The first is the LFO, or Legislative Fiscal Office, and it serves as a statutory fiscal advisor and determines the financial impact of every bill we propose. Then we have the Legislative Policy and Research Office, or LPRO, which provides a centralized research and committee management that keeps the processes moving. And I worked with them immediately after becoming pharmacist consultant in the summer of 2024, when I was asked to provide presentation on pharmacy closures to the state legislature during a PBM work group that they had. And finally, the period between formal sessions is called the interim. During this time, the legislature meets for legislative days approximately every 8 weeks. These 4-day cycles are vital to us as committees hold informational hearings to hear reports from state agencies and stay current on the issues affecting the Oregonians between major sessions. So once a bill passes, the next question is always, when does it become a law? So under ORS 171.022, the default is January 1st of the following session. However, you'll frequently see variations. Many bills include specific clauses that set a custom date or emergency clause that makes a law effective immediately upon the governor's signature. And on the flip side, sunset clauses can set automatic expiration dates for a law unless the legislature acts to renew it. For the board, these dates are our primary deadlines. Legislative mandates often require us to have our administrative rules and internal processes fully operational by a specific date, most commonly January 1st or often July 1st, to ensure public and our licensees are in compliance as soon as the law takes effect. Next slide.
Legislative consent.
Executive. All right, so I'll talk just a moment about executive appointments. So the process for joining the board is rooted directly in the Oregon Constitution. And while the governor makes the appointments, they're almost always subject to Senate confirmation. Legally, an appointee is not eligible to serve or vote until that confirmation process is complete. And because vacancies occur year-round, the Senate doesn't wait for full session to act. They convene at the call of the Senate president during the interim periods, generally on a quarterly basis during legislative days, specifically to review and confirm these executive appointments. This ensures the board maintains a full quorum and continues our work without significant delays between legislative sessions. In this slide here, we have legislative concepts, which will relate to some of the issues that were brought up previously surrounding the rules prioritization list. So, and depending on what we're talking about, the technician issues or non-licensees in the pharmacy would require legislative concepts. So it would be bound to the timelines that we'll cover in the slide. So before a bill ever reaches the floor, it begins as a legislative concept or LC. This is essentially the raw draft of an idea before it's formally introduced. For our purposes, we generally see 3 categories: major policy changes like creating new programs, minor program adjustments, and housekeeping, which are purely technical corrections with no policy impact. So there's a critical rule here. If an LC requires any funding to implement, it must be accompanied by corresponding policy option package or POP in our budget. And we can't ask for new authority without also showing how we plan to pay for it. Especially in years where there's a concern about the state's budget. Again, even though we're underfunded, there might be further restrictions that require a POP to be revenue neutral or expenditure neutral. In other words, an additional expenditure in one area must be met by an equal or offsetting reduction in another area. And the timeline for this is pretty extensive. It actually begins early in the preceding odd year session. It is a vigorous vetting process, or involves a vigorous vetting process, and every concept we draft must be reviewed and approved by the governor's office and DAS before it even reaches legislative council for formal drafting. So for most intents and purposes, you can think of this as an 11-month marathon. We propose ideas in January, receive feedback in February, and submit to DAS in April. By June, those approved concepts are sent to the legislative council. And by December, the final packets are filled for the upcoming session. This is why we're already discussing 2027 today. And in the world of legislative concepts, if you aren't a year ahead, you're already behind. So next we'll talk about how an idea becomes a law. Every bill begins, as mentioned, as an idea from perhaps a concerned citizen or group or agency. Once a representative agrees to sponsor it, Legislative Council drafts the formal legal language and assigns a bill number. Following the first reading, the speaker refers the bill to the committee, while the LFO simultaneously analyzes the potential fiscal impact. So the committee then does the heavy lifting, vetting the policy through public hearings and work sessions. And the most important rule in this process is that a bill must pass both the House and Senate in the identical form. If changes are made during the process, the bill is engrossed or reprinted with amendments to ensure that both chambers are voting on the exact same version before it ever reaches the governor's desk. And then once the bill returns from the committee, it moves through its second and third readings. The third reading is the final recitation where the body debates the measure. To move forward, it needs a majority vote, which is 31 in the House or 16 in the Senate. If it passes the first chamber, it repeats the entire process in the second. Crucially, the bill must pass both houses in the identical form as mentioned. If the second chamber changes even one word, the bill must be sent back to the House of origin for concurrence. If the two houses can't agree on the changes, a conference committee is appointed to resolve the differences. Once the identical version is passed by both, it's signed by the presiding officers and sent to the governor. The governor then has 5 weekdays to act during the session or 30 days if they've adjourned. If signed, the bill is filed with the Secretary of State and the Legislative Council officially weaves the new language into the ORS or Oregon Revised Statutes. And one last slide on how the bill becomes a law. So once it clears both chambers and we enter into that final validation stage, if the second chamber passes the bill without any changes, it's sent back for enrolling. I've already mentioned the concurrence process. And then after it passes both houses or both chambers in identical form, again, signed by the Speaker, Senate President, and Chief Clerk or Secretary, and then sent to the governor for signature. And once it's signed, it becomes an act. And I believe once the effective date is reached, it becomes a law. So here, I distilled a lot of this down into a timeline. I'm more of a visual learner, if you will, so I thought it'd be handy to see what we're doing now in preparation for the long session, if you will. So if you look on the left there, the preceding year, which is why I said this is a 3-year cycle, essentially, the preceding year, the long session, March 31st, April 6th, we have revenue estimates that were due, already submitted those, and exception requests that were due. April 1st through the 10th, depending on the number of legislative concepts you have, those are due to DAS. April 17th, POP concepts are due to Governor's Office and CFO. April 30th, as mentioned today, KPM changes are due. And it's going to set us up for the rest of the budget build and then some action in the 2027 long session, which again is up to 180 days. Starts in mid-January. And then one of the early and biggest timelines is April 1st, give or take. That's a deadline for vote out of the initial chamber. In mid-May, you have the deadline for vote out of the second chamber. And then late June is typically the end of the session. And then the following year, again, as mentioned, typically January 1st, unless there's an emergency clause, and there's the effective date of the majority of legislation that's going to pass through. And then one important thing to remember is even though we may not have our own bills in the mix, and we're constantly monitoring pharmacy adjacent legislation from other sectors, it's very common for the board to be, or myself, to be called to provide expert testimony on bills sponsored by other agencies or interest groups. And in these moments, we're careful to maintain a neutral, informative stance, ensuring that the legislature understands the technical and safety impacts on pharmacy practice without overstepping our role as a regulatory body. And you all may remember something like this from, was it Schoolhouse Rock, I think? Yeah.
Bill,
Yeah.
Capitol Hill.
Exactly. To wrap up this process portion of the presentation, it helps to think of the Legislative Assembly as the state's board of directors, if you will. While we cover the mechanics of how a bill moves, their high-level responsibility is threefold. So setting public policy, adopting the state budget, and providing a forum for resolving public grievances. So to give you a sense of scale, roughly 3,000 bills are introduced in a typical odd year session or long session. Because the workload's so massive, again, the legislature relies almost entirely on the committee work we discussed earlier to filter these down. Ultimately, only about 1/3 of those bills will ever become law. And for us as an agency, the most significant takeaway is their power of the purse, if you will, about deciding exactly how much money is allocated to our programs. The legislature doesn't just fund us, they establish the states and agencies' priorities, essentially. Beyond the budget, they also review the administrative rules that we draft. And as mentioned, the Senate holds the final word on our confirmations as board members. In short, they provide the statutory and financial boundaries within which we must operate to protect the health and safety of Oregonians. And then 4 takeaways, if you will, from all of this. Aside from, if you're not ahead, you're already behind. If you're not working a year ahead, you're already behind. Again, we have the 3-year rule of thumb. A single long session is actually a 3-year commitment for us. So we're constantly balancing 3 phases at once: planning for the future session, advocating the current one, and implementing the laws. Second takeaway is we're essentially expert witnesses. Even without a board bill, if you will, on the floor, we're never really on the sidelines. We serve as vital nonpartisan resources for committees such as the Healthcare Committee, ensuring that pharmacy adjacent legislation is clinically sound and operationally feasible. Third takeaway is fiscal stewardship of other funds agencies. So again, as other funds agency and other funds agency, we don't use taxpayer dollars, but we're held to the same standards as any other state agency. The last one is decoding the process via OLIS. It's a lot of information to take in at one time. If you ever have questions about where a bill is in the process or its status, or upcoming schedules for it, or previous measures, public testimony, etc., the Oregon Legislative Information System, or OLIS, OLIS, is your best buddy there. So understanding that path from an introduced to engrossed to enrolled will allow you to interpret that information you can find there to see where the bill in question is, and understand what our requirements be or obligations might be going forward. And with that, President Joyce, I'll turn it back over to you for any questions.
This is President Joyce, you want to go ahead and do the legislative session update, and then we can maybe get questions after that.
Okay. Yeah,
Related.
I can group all of that in the legislative update, financial update, and then a quick run through the strategic plan.
That's good.
I think I covered the majority of what I'll talk about in terms of the legislative update, the last board report. Really just 3 that we'll talk about. So 2025 House Bill 4131.
2026, sorry.
2026. Thank you,
It's
Staff
signed.
Member Melvin.
This is already outdated. She signed it.
House Bill 4131, that's a mobile pharmacy bill. So following successful negotiation to remove the 60-day licensure mandate, this bill passed the Legislative Assembly and was signed into law on March 27th, 2026. The board's now moving to the implementation phase. So for us, that'll include rulemaking and creating an inspection process. And these frameworks, of course, must be finalized by the effective date, January 1, 2027. And then 2026 House Bill 5203 is a fee ratification bill. It successfully cleared the session, and there were a lot of other state agencies that had fee ratifications housed in that bill as well. And it was signed on March 27th also. And most importantly, Section 5 officially ratifies the $100 criminal conviction determination process fee previously adopted by the board. And then lastly, we have 2026 Senate Bill 1598, or the OHA Standing Order Authority Bill, if you will. It's like previous measures, this bill is currently enrolled and still awaiting Governor Kotek's signature. While much of the legislation ensures continued insurance coverage for preventative services and immunizations, its most significant impact for the BOP is granting the state public health officer statutory authority to issue statewide standing orders for drugs and devices. Of course, that includes vaccinations. And crucially, this creates a pathway to swiftly resolve barriers to patient access and avoid the kind of operational crises we experienced last year, and particularly as it pertained to access to COVID vaccines and other respiratory vaccines. And especially when official government action and CDC guidance doesn't align with prevailing scientific recommendations. That's all I have as far as the legislation wrap up goes. And we'll move to the financial report. Scroll down to the end of February, immediately before the chart. So February marks month 8 of our 24-month biennium. Of course, that's exactly 1/3 of the way through. So I like to simplify things where I can. So in a standard linear budget, you'd expect, therefore, for us to have consumed about 66.7% of our resources. So you can just take a quick look there and see essentially that anything above 66% is a surplus. So total expenditures, we are standing at 74.68%. So that's about 8 full percentage points above where we're expected to be. So it represents a surplus there. Personal services, about 5.5 percentage points in the green, and services and supplies, and we have about 12 percentage points in the green there. As a reminder, our target end of biennium cash balance is a reserve of about 5.6 months of operating expenses. However, due to operational efficiencies we've implemented and our projected reserve is roughly 8 months. This puts the agency roughly 30% above our target, providing a significant safety net for us, and it demonstrates, I think, our ongoing commitment to fiscal responsibility. But we're not just sitting on the overage. I'm currently evaluating opportunities to strategically allocate the surplus to further increase our efficiency, decrease staff workload, and develop tools to supplement future board deliberation. These metrics show we're actively managing our footprint while simultaneously creating the financial agility needed to continuously improve how the agency functions. And that's it for the financial part of the update. I'll just go over some high-level milestones since the regarding the strategic plan since our last meeting. So we continue to meet governor's expectations despite staffing shortages. So we've obviously hired a limited duration compliance assistant. The licensing rep position that was vacated on March 31st, and we're already in the recruitment process for that. And next steps involve the vid recruiter, which we should take care of very soon. I attended the Joint Ways and Means Committee hearings in Salem regarding House Bill 5203, as mentioned, for ratifying the board's $100 criminal conviction determination process fee. Submitted revenue projections and budget narrative for the 27-29 budget, and currently working on a few policy option packages before the April 16th deadline, and the KPM modifications that you saw today, and which will be submitted by the April 30th deadline. There's a few highlights from an operational standpoint. We've continued to work on the revision of standard works within the agency to ensure consistency, increase transparency, and enhance efficiency of license and registration processing and review. Our most recent revisions occurred on Monday, March 2nd, which represented a major collaborative effort between the licensing and compliance departments. And we're already seeing some of the benefits of that investment on the back end. Regarding the 3 vacancies, I plan to post the pharmacist consultant position soon, hopefully before I travel out of the state in May to NABP. Fully expect to meet the governor's 50-day hiring timeline for that posting. And our refined onboarding processes help ensure this training will yield a massive return on investment for our agency's capacity. For the CFAO and strategic initiatives manager roles, I'm deliberately delaying recruitment to strategically realign them with our leadership structure. I'm currently drafting a reclassification for the CFAO position and working with DAS HR and the LFO to determine the best path forward for the strategic initiatives manager position, which may mean keeping it vacant until next biennium. Taking the time to properly align these positions now rather than rushing to fill the seats and actually ensures we're perfectly positioned to execute the board's long-term goals. And a couple other highlights. Created a 65 slide presentation and script on pharmacist prescribing for OSPA Lane County Seminar, which our staff delivered to overwhelmingly positive and unsolicited feedback from the community. So thanks to CEOs Richmond and McComas for that. I recently gave a 2-hour presentation to P3s in their pharmacy law and ethics course at OSU alongside CEO McComas. I stepped in on short notice to present on pharmacist prescribing at the OSHP annual seminar in Sun River. We'll also be co-presenting a law update with compliance officer Jane Lee, and we also have an exhibitor booth for that weekend as well. I delivered board and legislative updates to both OSPA Pharmacy Coalition and OHA Quarterly Pharmacy Partners in March. Accepted an invitation from Washington State Pharmacy Association to present an Oregon Pharmacy Law update at the Northwest Pharmacy Convention in Idaho at the end of May. Met with the Division of Financial Regulation, part of DCBS, to explore data sharing and joint messaging opportunities to ensure our licensees are aware of certain relevant services provided at that state agency. Reinvigorated the recruitment effort for a vacant public board member position by strategizing with other agency directors from health professional regulatory boards. And we had a few media requests along the way, one involving 503A compounding, another involving compounding peptides specifically. We had a request from Marion County Board of Commissioners regarding kratom. Engaged with researchers from OHSU and Duke University to provide insights on the implementation of Medicaid coverage for OTC contraception. I did a lot of work or foundational work on that project as pharmacist consultant. And so they're interested in how it went. So I have some meetings with them scheduled soon. And I could go on and on. And while these updates shared today provide a strategic snapshot of what we're doing, they're not exhaustive. They only represent a fraction of the projects and milestones that we're successfully navigating and have since the previous board meeting. I just want to express my sincerest gratitude to my team for the tireless work they do behind the scenes to promote public health, safety, and welfare for all Oregonians. I think their commitment has had an indelible positive impact on the practice of pharmacy in our state and beyond. And this agency's success is a direct reflection of their dedication. And I'm incredibly proud to work alongside such a talented group of professionals. And with that, I chew a piece of gum because my mouth is dry. I'll turn it back over to you, President Joyce.
Thank you, Executive Director Runyon. You're a busy man. When do you get time to sleep? No, thank you for that. Just a question on the public health member applicants, interests, anything?
Executive Director Runyon, we do have a few applicants. I'm awaiting a list of more applicants from the governor's office. I think they have a kind of rotating standing list of individuals that perhaps have served on previous boards that might be candidates for continued service with other agencies. Mm-hmm. So I'm awaiting that list. We already have some applicants to review for that. And I'm waiting to hear back from, I think, 3 other EDs regarding individuals that they've had serve or individuals that they feel might be ideal candidates for us. And I think for us, compared to other health professional regulatory boards or other regulatory boards in general, as you well know, there's a lot of material to go over. I think comparatively a lot more so than other agencies. So they've made recommendations to, they're involved having interviews to that effect on the front end, especially for the public member position, so they know what they're getting into. We don't waste a lot of effort, on the front end training someone, and exactly, because that's not a judicious, doesn't represent a judicious use of resources either. So, have some in the hopper and some more promise in terms of.
That's good. Anyone have any questions regarding this part? Otherwise, did you want to discuss the NABP delegate situation? But are there any questions regarding anything, legislative session, financial update or anything? No? Okay. ABP delegates?
So at this point, I don't think we need to expound upon it very much. Rich and I, or President Joyce and I are going to the MVP meeting, annual convention, in May, so, middle of next month. And, I know we had previously, due to, some budgetary constraints and restrictions on state travel, from last September regarding I think it was the district's 5, 6, 7 or 6, 7, 8, meeting in October. And we didn't have any representation there, and there were perhaps some unknowns in terms of whether or not someone could represent the board if the board wasn't paying for them to be there. I know we had some preliminary conversations centered around that. Suffice it to say, from some ensuing conversations, I'm confident that we can do that if the certain criteria are met, which seem to be. So all of that to say, I would open it up to President Joyce for a motion to vote for Board Member Kroger to be the alternative voting delegate for that meeting.
Sounds good. Is there a motion? Move Board Member Victoria Kroger as the alternate voting delegate at the 122nd in the NABP annual meeting. Is there a second?
And Board Member Chin.
Board President Joyce, yes. Board Vice President Kirkbride.
Yes.
Member Chin. Board Member Hall.
Yes.
Board Member Kroger.
Yes.
Board Member Patel.
Yes.
Board Member Pinedo.
Yes.
Board Member Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes. Should I read the second motion or I don't need to do that? I should, okay. Is there a motion to move the delegate authority to Board Member Kroger in the event Board Member Joyce is unable to be the voting delegate to make decisions on behalf of the board regarding proposed resolutions for the 122nd NABP annual meeting, May 12, May 15 through May 15, 2026?
So move Board Member Chin.
Is there a second?
Second, Board Member Smith.
Board President Joyce, yes. Board Vice President Kirkbride.
Yes.
Board Member Chin.
Yes.
Board Member Hall.
Yes.
Board Member Kroger.
Yes.
Board Member Patel.
Yes.
Board Member Pinedo.
Yes.
Member Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead with the consent agenda. Is there any board discussion on the consent agenda? Board President Joyce, no. Board Vice President Kirkbride.
No.
Board Member Chin.
No.
Board Member Hall. Board Member Kroger.
Yeah.
Board.
No,
What?
no, sorry.
That's your final answer, okay.
Final answer.
All right. You are tired. Board Member Patel.
No.
Board Member Pinedo. Board Member Pinedo.
No.
Okay, Board Member Smith. All right, motion passes.
No, that wasn't a motion.
No, not me, I'm sorry, I apologize, I retract that. So we're gonna go ahead and motion to approve the consent agenda as proposed. Is there a motion to to approve the consent agenda as proposed?
So move Board Member Kirkbride.
Is there a second?
Second, Board Member Smith.
Board Joyce, yes. Board Vice President Kirkbride.
Yes.
Board Member Chin. Board Member Hall. Board Member Kroger.
Yes.
Board Member Patel. Board Member Pinedo.
Yes.
Board Member Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, no public comment?
Nobody signed up?
Okay, sounds good. So we will now, take the time for each board member to provide comments and policy discussion for future board meetings. I'll start with, Board Vice President Kirkbride.
I don't have anything at this time, just all three of you, please don't be on the same flight, because now I'm just really concerned.
Bourbon. Sorry.
Yeah, have fun. Thank you.
Board Member Chin. Board Member Hall.
No, nothing.
Board Member Kroger.
Board Member Kroger, I think I mentioned this to the board, but I will be serving on the resolutions committee as well. That's not in representation of the board per se, but that's myself attending that. So I will be well versed in the resolutions by the end of that meeting.
Excellent. Board Member Patel.
Wonderful. Nothing, but whoever go to an MVP meeting, please do 10 minutes presentation or whatever, just what do you get information? I
That's
might
good.
join, I might not, so.
Board Member Pinero,
Board Member Pinedo, nothing to add.
Board Member Smith, anything?
Nothing to add.
Yeah, Board President Joyce, I just want to say thank you for everything. I mean, and I'm happy about pushing drug compounding. Very happy about that, pushing that through. And thank you for all your due diligence. Any staff, anything to be discussed, matters of discussion by staff?
Executive Director run in. This reminds me of a story. What? No, I'm kidding. No,
Back in Tennessee.
Nothing that.
All right. Is there a motion to
Oh,
move?
sorry, President
Oh.
Joyce, can you read that statement about the notes, please? That's important.
Oh, my
you.
apologies. Oh, yes. Board members who took written notes, before or during the board meeting, please add your name, date, and mark confidential if they are taken during executive session and provided to staff member Melvin. If you would like to keep a copy of your written notes, please go to the board office and staff will assist you with making a copy before you depart the building. If you took electronic notes outside of OneDrive, email your notes to rachel.melvin@bop.oregon.gov. All right. Is there a motion to move to adjourn the meeting at 4:53 PM?
I'll move for member.
Is there a second?
Okay, Board Member Kirkbride.
Board President Joyce, yes. Board Vice President Kirkbride.
Yes.
Board Member Chin. Board Member Hall. Board Member Kroger.
Yes.
Board Member Patel.
Yes.
Board Member Pinero.
Yes.
Board Member Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes. See y'all later. Boston.
Not tomorrow.
Yeah.
Everybody.